Hello and welcome to Box, a Formula One podcast. I am your soft compound tires, Shannon Hayes.
I've got hard on, Sam Cockcroft.
And I'm wet, Meryl Huseman.
Welcome to the Tyre episode. A very sexy and sultry Tyre episode. But before we get into the meat of the episode, which is the tires, we're going to just cover a few quick news stories from the week.
Yeah.
That's starting with...
Charles's COVID, right? That's probably the biggest thing that happened this week.
Yeah, he just tweeted out a little picture of like a little Notes app announcement saying that, hey guys, I have COVID. So, I mean, God, how many drivers is that now? Lando just got it last week. Is there going to be a new driver every week? New COVID drop.
I think so. We could just make a prediction of how many drivers are going to get COVID.
Wait, who's going to go next? I feel like I think Max is next. Max, because he's just been out with Kelly Piquet.
Oh, that's true. He posted that picture.
Yeah, they've just been out with groups of people. I feel like none of the F1 drivers are actually taking COVID seriously anymore. Like, now they're off season and they don't really have to.
I don't know. I feel like Carlos was just chilling wherever he was by himself on, playing golf every day. I feel like he was having a good time and he was being safe.
That's fair.
He did look pretty away from the world. He was just, at this really nice resort by himself, possibly with family, but, I never saw anyone else. It was always just him doing golf or, diving, so...
Yeah.
Who knows?
I was trying to figure out where he was because he would post stuff and his time zone was only an hour ahead of me.
Oh.
And I just don't know where that would put him. And I'm mad at myself because he posted one thing and it was a picture of the little bar and it had a name and I meant to look up the place because I wanted to know where he was and then I forgot and they took it down it expired and I never got a chance to look it up, so I never knew where he was.
Sad.
An hour ahead of EST?
Yeah.
That's weird. That's got to be Nova Scotia or something.
But it didn't look like Canada.
What would he be doing there?
I'm thinking maybe Caribbean. That's my best guess.
Well, but he was in Madrid too because he was or was that just posting his family's photos? Because he posted all those photos with the snow and stuff.
I think he was there and then he left and he did a warm vacation.
How do you know he wasn't just up real late?
Yeah, maybe he's just saving his stories and stuff and then posting them.
Yeah. They're all later.
Somehow he's in Texas and then the next hour he's in Madrid.
But why put the timestamp on it then?
Just to throw you off. Yeah. You specifically saying.
You.
Just to make you question yourself and your own sanity for a little bit.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. He's in Magello now. Things are right in the world. He posted a video speaking Italian.
Oh, good.
It's all good.
Oh, good. Back with Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I think Carlos Sainz is safe. I think he's not going to get COVID.
No.
I think Max is a good prediction.
Yeah.
I think you're right on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking maybe Danny Rick. Maybe, what about, and hear me out, what about Esteban Ocon?
Yeah, what's he been up to? What's Esteban Ocon been up to?
What's he been up to? He dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Where is he?
Got a notification yesterday that he added something to his story, but I did not watch it.
No, neither. So. I'm bad at that too. I only watch Carlos.
What if it was a COVID announcement? Yeah, what if he was announcing he had COVID on his story?
No, he was probably sharing some Alpine stuff because they've been sharing a lot of stuff on their Insta. What did you guys think of the new Alpine, the winter livery? Livery?
I liked it. Livery. I don't know. That's how I would, as an American.
Okay, well, as a European, I read it livery. Now I don't know what I said.
You said livery.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was pretty cool, but I don't know. The video they posted, sick.
Yeah, I like the video.
Yeah.
I like that this is just like their winter livery because I
yeah.
like that it's black for now and then they're gonna change to their blue. I think that that's cool.
Yeah. Well, hopefully,
I like how many people were upset that it wasn't blue.
Yeah.
People were up in arms about that.
Yeah.
You know what they should do? They should be pink. We need the pink back on the grid.
We won't rest till we see the pink back on the grid.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. I just checked Esteban Ocon's story, and it's this edit of him pointing and like with the Sistine Chapel like ceiling thing with the other pointing thing with God, and it's just him and God pointing at each other.
Oh. Me too.
Yeah, basically. I was expecting it to be something like some like post of like the like Alpine stuff, which is like I guess should be more exciting to us as F1 fans, but that was a good one.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm more interested in Esteban pointing at God and God pointing back.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in other news, Australia's officially been postponed, so we won't be. And does that that means that the season now starts in Bahrain, right? Yeah.
Yep. Season starts in Bahrain, and it's a week later,
too.
I guess.
Yeah.
So
24th, I think.
28th. I don't know the dates.
It's that weekend of March, like end of March now.
Yeah. Which I was confused about the like move to Bahrain because testing was in Barcelona, and that.
Well, weren't you the one that said that, like, people, maybe, I don't know, I feel like you were the one that said this, that people were already, like, kind of over Barcelona being the testing place because it gave them so much, data for racing at Barcelona, so it would be good to not have that this year.
I think that's fair. I think the argument against Bahrain, though, was that basically when testing they have like if they have different things that they want to change, they can have parts easily like shipped to the testing site because in Barcelona you're close to all of the places in like
Europe.
Western Europe where a lot of the teams are based.
Yeah.
And
that's
now you're in Bahrain, which is doesn't help that. And then I think the only good thing about Bahrain is that after testing you don't have to transport all of your stuff there.
Yeah.
But
it'll be fun. I guess, like, it doesn't really matter for us.
Yeah, I think they should have picked somewhere else in Western Europe.
Mm.
Like, even maybe at, like, a track that they don't actually have a race at.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never actually understood why they don't just do that, like, in general. Because, like, that'll... Well, I guess if everyone gets to test, they all get the data. But... I mean, it would be fun for no one to have anything, and then just like starting fresh on every track. But
see, but not everyone always gets to test because sometimes you're Williams and you don't have a car.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Yikes.
And well, because of that, they also added. No, that was not because of that. That was a different change. They got rid of China and added Imola to the calendar as well. And then we still have one race still to be announced.
Yeah, well, this season is just becoming less and less international, honestly.
Yeah.
Like all Europe now, and like Australia and America.
Yeah, I think it's just because it's in the places where there's like less strict COVID restrictions.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Which, I don't know, Australia, I think, is going to get removed from the calendar at some point in the future.
I
saw this, like, WTF1 video basically saying that there's no way we're going to have 23 races this season, and I agree.
I think it's going to be, like, they're going to try and have, like, race weekends back-to-back, and then it kind of like last season, where you just have, like, back-to-back races just to get races in, you know? We'll see. I'm just over... I want races to start. Weekends without them. Yeah, really.
Yeah,
I am.
I'm so used to, like, Sunday morning. I'll wake up, I'll watch the F1 race, I'll put some Tottenham football on in the middle, and then American football starts in the afternoon, and then that's what I would watch. And I can't do that anymore.
Ideal. No, I know. Ugh.
Sundays
so
were my
sad.
sports day, and that's just gone.
Yeah.
It'll return soon enough. We just gotta hold out hope and hope that not everyone gets COVID at the same time.
Are they getting shots? I feel like they would be, right? They're professional athletes. That's what I meant, not shots.
I mean, it's a shot.
Yeah, it's a shot. Wouldn't they get like vaccines before the start of the season? Because they're professional
I feel like
athletes. You'd expect, right?
It depends on the country. So I don't know. Like, are they getting it based on where they're from? Because I think then that's different.
Well, see, in most of Europe at this point, you can buy the vaccine. It's wild.
Damn.
It's wild because a lot of the doses that are going out, like the dose is supposed to be 2, like, right? And then the amount of vaccine they give you is actually like 2.5. So they're like saving it and then selling the rest of the vaccine off.
Oh my god.
But it's so expensive. Like, oh, okay, it's wild, but nothing to do with F1. So yeah.
I mean, I know that in the US, I think the NBA said that they're not going to vaccinate their players right now because they want to make sure that everybody that needs to get vaccinated is vaccinated first. So I think like that's the case with professional athletes, is that they can pay and they can afford to vaccinate all the players and athletes, but they don't want to because then it's just taking
they're not
away.
like essential workers or anything.
Yeah. I mean, especially because it's so limited in the US. And vaccine rollout.
I mean, here too.
Less than ideal.
Yeah.
In theory, like, I mean, if you can just buy them in Europe, the drivers certainly have enough money to just...
Well, the other thing that's happening is like it's cheaper to buy like a fake COVID test, so you basically that it shows that you tested negative, because those things, like, it's wild. They're going around and you can buy them for like 20 euros, and then the actual test is like 200 euros. So people that are flying are buying these 20 euro things that say you're tested negative instead of getting the actual test. It's wild.
Oh my god, that's so scary.
Anyway. Yeah.
Anyway, why don't we get into
Yeah.
You know what I'm tired of? Is COVID. I'm real tired of it. Speaking of tires.
Yeah.
Why don't we discuss some tires?
All right. So, I think for our non-F1 fan listeners, and then also for Shannon and Meryl, who maybe don't know this stuff, we're gonna go over some tires.
Hell yeah, let's do it. Let's learn.
Okay. So, as you probably know, we have the dry, like, slick tires, and then we also have treaded tires. So, of the dry slicks, there were 5 different compounds made by Pirelli last season: C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. And for each race, 3 of these different compounds are selected and assigned either hard, medium, or soft, and assigned their little colors. So I'm just going to give the example because we're going to get into George Russell's tire situation. So for the Sakir Grand Prix, the hard were C2, medium were C3, and soft were C4.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How are they selected at random, or is it selected based on the track?
It's selected based on the track, like, by Pirelli, and that's decided on, like, for the weekend. These are the tires we're going to use.
And it's just, like, whichever ones Pirelli think is going to perform best at that specific track?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so generally, the softs are the fastest tires, but they're less durable and they don't last as long, which is why, like, in a race, you'll see more hard and medium tires so they can last longer, but in qualifying, you'll see soft tires so they can set the faster lap times to qualify better. And then treaded tires, we have our intermediates, which are for a wet track with no standing water, or like a track that's drying, like if it rained earlier in the morning. And then wets, which are for like hardcore rain and standing water. And those are, treaded, obviously. So, like, more like general street tires that we would see. And so now here's where it gets kind of complicated, is there's, like, allocation regulations for each weekend. So each driver can select 10 sets of tires for one race weekend.
Okay.
And those 10 are chosen from 13 sets of dry tires, 4 sets of intermediate, and 3 sets of full wet tires.
Wait, and these 10 sets of tires is for, like, the practices, quali, and the race?
Yeah, so I get, like, there's, like, a division of, like, how it's divided up between, like, practice, qualifying, and race. So for practice, they're allowed to use only 3 sets of the dry tires maximum, and certain sets have to be returned to Pirelli before the second and third sessions. So I think if you, like, you use your, whatever tire you use during, like, FP1, you have to return to Pirelli before FP2.
And then you're just out, so that's like, now you're down to, like, 9 sets of tires or, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, once you've got that set.
Wait, you probably will go over this too, but how does that then work with reusing tires that you've used in quali?
I don't think that they do.
Oh.
Based on what I read, I don't think that they do.
Okay.
Yeah. So then for qualifying, they reserve one of those 10 sets of softs to keep just for qualifying in order to set the, like, faster lap times. Mm-hmm. And then I think, as both of you guys know, the top 10 drivers from qualifying must start on the tires that they qualified on. So in the case of Sakir, I think both Bottas and George qualified with softs, so they started the race on softs.
Oh, yeah. So it's not, like, actually reusing the ones that they, like, physically did the qualifying in. It's just the same type of compound. Yeah. Yeah.
So they have 10 sets of tires. 3 are taken away for practice, so then that's 7. Another one taken away for qualifying, so 6. And then they have 2 reserved for the race.
Okay.
Oh, no, 2 of each sets. So they reserve 2 medium and 2 hard for the final race. And then they can also choose to use softs if they want to.
Yeah. Okay, that makes so much more sense than what I thought.
I'm a bit confused now on, like, so so they have 2 sets of hard and mediums for the race. Could they choose? So those could be soft, or what?
Well, basically, I think once you get to the race, they still have 6 sets of tires left. Mm-hmm. And they
can just allocate those as they please.
So they can allocate 2 of those as they please. 2 of them have to be hard, and 2 of them have to be medium.
Okay, got you. I'm understanding tires now.
Me too.
So you can choose to use softs, but I think like I think this gets more into, like, the strategy part of, like, if you want to do, like, a one-stop strategy, you're probably not going to use softs at all. Mm-hmm. Because they just won't last as long. Okay. So that's, like, the general, like, regulation and, like, compound stuff.
This makes so much more sense with what happened to George Russell and why that was an issue.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand, in theory, why it would be a penalty kind of issue.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and
now I get it.
Like, I think also with that, because they put on other tires, like, it's because you have different sets and because each driver can choose, each driver's team can choose which kind of tires they want for that weekend. So, like, I saw this one graphic of, like, what sets the drivers chose for, like, this race in Mexico a couple years ago. So you can choose to have, like, Red Bull, I think, chose to have, like, 6 or 7 sets of this, like, super softs that they were using that year, whereas Mercedes chose to have, like, 10 sets of those. So, yeah. And this I think was all just for 2020. So stuff may or may not change, and I think it also does differ sometimes depending on the race weekend.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just, like, very general overview. Okay. So now we're getting into some more technical stuff with, like, tire wear and, like, maintaining your tires.
Yeah.
So for temperature, basically you have a really narrow range of operating temperature, so you have to warm up your tires to get them into that range or, like, cool them down to keep them in that range. And so my dad actually told me that the swerving does not actually help really warm up your tires. that the most effective way to warm up your tires is actually to brake, because the brakes are super hot, as we can see with Bottas's brakes that have caught on fire, which is my background today. They're so hot that they, like, when they rub against the tires, they warm up the tires really well.
But wouldn't it be, I mean, aren't the little swervies they do, like, creating
friction?
Not a ton of friction, certainly not the same as, like, braking at 200 miles an hour, but, like, you know, they are still creating some friction. I feel like certainly there has to be some value to it if all of them do it.
I feel like it's more of maintaining. I feel like it's more maintaining heat, right, when they're going slow.
Yeah.
Whereas the braking is what you saw. Remember, it's what you saw when, was it Kimi? Who was the one that was leading that one race and then he caused the whole pile up? No, it wasn't Kimi. Someone caused the whole pile up because he was doing this. He was, like, doing the brake and stop and brake and stop. And then, I forgot what race it was.
I can picture the crash in my head.
Yeah, Carlos crashed and, like, it was like a 4 or 5 man crash. Anyway.
Was it Tuscany? Was it this year?
Yeah, it was this year.
It was this year.
Tuscany?
Maybe it was?
After the safety car? It was right after the safety car was out and everyone's tires were cooling?
Yeah, and they were doing the brake and stop.
That's not what I thought happened. I thought that they were, whoever it was, like, braked so that they could, like, accelerate further, if that makes sense.
Might have been that. I don't know.
Either
I thought
way,
it was
somebody braked when they weren't supposed to.
back to tires now.
Yeah, so that's basically, like, the main way, like, the best way to warm up tires, but the swerving, I think is, like, partially to maintain heat, and then also just, like, kind of to, like, break them in, especially if you're on, like, newer tires. But I think it's, like, I think it's, like, high risk, minimal reward, because you can crash doing that.
Yeah,
as we've
like
seen.
George.
Yes. And, like, Grosjean.
Yeah, Grosjean all of the time.
But yeah, and George that one time, but was really sad. Just because you, like, if you don't have good grip, especially on, like, colder tires, then that's it. Hotter tires will break down faster, so that's, like, kind of part of the wear and, like, maintaining them, which is, I think, more dependent on, like, the temperature of the track, especially when they're racing in, like, these really hot places, which is why they usually do, like, night races so the track can cool down a little bit more.
I always thought they did Singapore at night just because it looked cool. This makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and also, like, I remember Bottas this whole season was complaining about being in the black car and the black suit because it just was so hot and it was just really frustrating.
Oh, he said in, like, an interview, he's like, I lose, like, 4 kilos over the course of a race at, like, Singapore or those
because of the
hotter
sweat
places. Yeah, just from sweat, like.
And because they're wearing, like, lots of layers and, like, this whole race suit. So that's temperature. Now we're gonna get into pressure just a little bit, which is related to temperature. So if you have a warmer tire, your pressure goes up, and there's less kind of, like, surface area touching the ground, which is called the contact patch, the little part that touches the ground, the only part of the car that touches the ground, contact patch.
Nice.
Yes, so that's, like, yeah, you get, like, worse surface area, like, less surface area, so worse grip, which is another problem. And then colder tires means low pressure, and you lose the, like, sidewall support of the tire, and you lose its structure, which is really important, especially, like, while cornering. And then finally, last thing, unrelated to pressure, but, or maybe related to pressure, and I don't know, but, locking up is basically when the tire doesn't turn while braking, so it just kind of rubs flat against the ground, and it wears away and creates this flat spot, so then when you're driving, you can, like, feel the vibrations and the bumps from it, and it's just, like, worn away in that one area more so than the rest of the tire. Just so now we know what they're saying.
Yeah.
Every time they say
spotting.
locking up. Yeah, and then, like, just, like, a strategy point, soft tires are faster, like I said, but they'll often use medium or hard tires during the race because they'll last longer, and that way you have a little bit more flexibility in your, like, pit stop strategy and can aim for that one stop as opposed to a 2-stop strategy, which is preferable. because pitting obviously is not just the time it takes, like the 3 seconds it takes them to put on the new tires, but all that time that you're slowed down in the pits.
Right.
So.
And also the risk of your pit crew messing something up.
Yes.
Or hitting your pit crew.
Yeah, or you could just hit your pit crew.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Sorry, yeah.
No, related. Final point is that temperature, like when you have like warmer tires, they're like stickier, so their grip is better, which is why when we thought Stroll was being dumb saying the car was sticky, he was talking about his tires.
Oh.
Because it is actually a term that they use to describe the tires' stickiness.
The way he said it, it still sounded dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just because of the accent. It's like, yeah, man, my cars were real sticky this weekend.
It's the name of the
Which I guess,
game.
like, wait, was he saying that they were sticky or that they were not sticky enough?
They weren't sticky, but he wasn't talking about tires. He was just talking about the car, and he was like, yeah, it just wasn't sticky enough.
So but he meant the tires.
Yeah, I know, but the way he said it just sounded dumb.
Yeah. No, I know that it like sounded so stupid, but now I think it is good to know that he's at least talking about something that is related to the car and its performance.
Fair enough.
And he's not as dumb as
I feel like he's not actually that dumb. He just can't speak good.
He just can't.
I mean, I can't, so it's fine.
Fair, me either.
I know, same.
I have no right to
I'm in no place to judge him.
Yeah.
Are we feeling good about our tire understanding?
Yeah.
I am.
I'm
feeling very informed.
Very confident. Test me. No, don't.
Please don't.
Well, so yeah, all of this stuff was basically based on the 2020 season and the 2020 tires. So there will be changes,
right?
Obviously in 2021. I guess like a short bit. They tested the 2021 tires in Bahrain, and all of the news about it basically says Hamilton was not pleased.
When is Hamilton ever pleased, to be fair, though?
Yeah.
You can never
I don't know.
him. You can never please a 7 world champion.
Yeah, I think that's it, unless you guys have any remaining questions.
That was
about
really
tire.
helpful.
That was helpful. I feel like I understand tire strategy now. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of that ties into Mr. George Russell at the Secure Grand Prix and his Mercedes debut, which was stolen from him due to we'll call it poor tire allocation. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So what happened at the Secure Grand Prix, I can't imagine anyone listening to this might not know, but basically George Russell was racing in Mercedes as opposed to Williams for the first time, and he was leading by 3 seconds over Valtteri Bottas, who's normally in a Mercedes, so in theory Valtteri should have been coming in ahead of him. And it was, a big underdog story, a real upset. All the F1 fans were going absolutely feral, rooting for their boy George.
Going mental.
They were going absolutely mental. So a safety car comes out, and Mercedes decides to kind of do an on-the-fly pit stop. And so they they decide to double stack with both of the Mercs.
Just hearing you talk about this again is making me upset.
Disappointment.
I know. It's every pause is like to hold back tears. So George comes into the pits, and the pit crew comes out. They put on his tires, and then immediately after he leaves, I think the entire pit crew realized they fucked up. And then Bottas comes in, gets his rear tires put on. There's no front tires ready for Bottas, and everyone's like,
rolled
what
into
the
pit
fuck
lane,
is
pretty
going
sure.
on? Like, one of his tires is on fire in the front, and people in charge of the front tires take his tires off, kind of just like hang around with their dicks out for like 16 seconds, and then just put his old tires back on. They don't even put out the fire, and just like slap him on the ass and send him back out and just say, you're good to go, buddy. what happens, what happened is that then they radio George and they say, hey, you've got two of Valtteri's tires on your front. So you're riding on mixed tires right now, which is a no-no. And so George has to come back in and pit in the next lap to get his tires replaced so that he is, compliant with FIA regulations regarding tires, as we know that they have their own tires allocated to each driver and the sets that they have to use for that weekend. So that explains why that was an issue that needed to be changed and resolved. And so, yeah, you're obviously not allowed to ride on mixed tires like that. They change out his front tires, then he comes out, and at the end of this whole ordeal with the double pit, he's in, 5th place. He goes really hard and fights his way back up to 2nd, and in doing that, he gets a puncture on the tire, goes back into the pits, has to get his tires changed again, and ends up finishing the race in 9th. So that's the overview.
So sad.
Terrible. Listen, Bottas also got fucked over by that whole situation, but it's not nearly as sad as George Russell's debut of first, pit 5th, fights his way back up to 2nd, has to pit again, finishes in 9th. That is so tragic.
Yeah. I think it's also it's sad for Bottas because he just literally can never have anything go right for him.
Yeah.
I know.
True.
That one pit stop where they literally just hang out and try to figure out what to do with these tires because they don't have front tires for him is wild.
And then I thought it was really, before George's puncture, I thought it was just so devastating to watch George climb his way back up to 2nd and see Bottas just slowly slipping back because he was running on such old tires.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Toto actually said that the puncture wasn't due to anything on the track. He thinks it probably came from George fighting really hard to gain back all those places from 5th to 2nd, and he would go off the line quite a lot to overtake, and that just resulted in wear and tear on the tires to the point that he created a slow puncture, which I guess that's kind of George's fault in terms of strategy, but also, you're in the Mercedes for the first time. You obviously
who's not
going
to do that?
Back up.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, when you watch it, it is a very aggressive overtake that he keeps doing. So I think it is a testament to how drivers do have to manage their tires, and they can't just constantly be overtaking like that. And sometimes it's better to take your time. Anyway, so the reason that this whole situation actually happened was because, I like the conspiracy that Toto called it in and made the call that that they needed to sabotage him so that he wouldn't undermine Hamilton's success. But in reality, it actually happened, and I didn't know this. It happened because of a radio failure. So what happened was the pit crew members for Bottas, they got the call that they were doing a double stack, so they got Bottas's tires ready for front and rear, and then George Russell's rear tires heard the message that they were doing a double stack, but his front tire guys did not get the message, so they didn't prepare his front tires at all because they just didn't hear the message. So then when they get ready for the double stack, they have all the tires out ready to go, so in theory they should have 8 tires ready, 4 for each of them, but they only had the 6, so all of Valtteri's, and then only the rear 2 for Russell, and then so Russell pulls in first, and they only have Valtteri's tires available for the front, and they just assumed that was the right tires. I don't know.
I just don't understand how they didn't catch it then.
Yeah, because also before they take them out of the sleeves have the names on them, in big letters,
which are actually warming blankets, by the way.
Yeah,
they're also color coded.
I'm color coded. Yeah. I feel like there were so many steps in between where it could have been stopped.
But I think what would they have done at that point? I think that if they had waited to find George's front tires, put on George's front tires, Bottas is waiting behind him for God knows how long, then they're both slowed down almost just as much. I think, I don't know, the issue is that it just all happened. I just was also mad when they perfected their double stack the next week.
Yeah, the next week.
I also think that part of the issue may have been that, you know, the speed of a pit stop, you expect like the first, especially in a double stack, you expect that the first person coming in, their tires are going to be like right here next to you. So like a pit crew member who's just trying to get that tire on fast, you're just going to grab it, you know? And you might not necessarily be looking at that point because it should be the right tires at that moment.
Yeah, it's not their responsibility to be checking that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's due to a radio failure, which is, you know, as Toto put it, a colossal fuck up for the whole team. But also just, you know, one final point, the team ended up being fined 20,000 euros for the fuck up, the colossal fuck up. But George Russell wasn't penalized, which is, I mean, this situation was unprecedented. In the usual case of like having a tire mix-up or like any sort of tire issues, usually the driver would be penalized and they would either get like a penalty or like reduce points. It's something like that. In this case, the FIA actually changed the rule. Yeah, they did an official rule change because the FIA like reviewed it and they were like, we actually don't have a rule in place for this kind of situation where like it's not the driver's fault, it's the pit crew's fault. And because George Russell corrected it within one lap and he like pitted the next lap, got it fixed, they decided, you know, if the driver fixes it within 2 laps, they won't be penalized.
Okay.
Yeah, so they actually made a new rule to account for the George Russell scenario.
They were just like, let him have the 1 point, like, it's his.
They were like, we can't take this 1 point away from our boy George. That's too fair.
I think it was, I mean, I would have been mad if he had like a penalty because it really, like, it just hurt him so much that it just, I don't know. He pitted an extra 2 times. I mean, one of them was his fault, but
I was gonna say, talking about, because well, this doesn't really link in any way to what happened to George Russell, but there was only one like other real big like scandal in the tire world in F1, and it happened in the US, so just know that I'm gonna be shitting on the US for the next 10 minutes.
That's fine. You're European. Europeans always be like that. Haters.
But no, basically this scandal, if that's what you want to call it, happened with Michelin. And Pirelli actually only became the sole tire manufacturer or like, what's the name for them?
Supplier,
yeah. In 2011. And before that, it was Bridgestone and like a bunch of other ones. And in 2001, Michelin joined, entered Formula One to become a supplier too. So from 2001 to 2006, there were 2 tire suppliers, Michelin and Bridgestone, which I think is so weird that like cars can be racing on different tires.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird too.
Yeah.
Because when I was looking at the like tire page to try and, you know, do my own tire research, that they have all of these different
suppliers,
like manufacturers, and then they have like a breakdown of how many wins they had a season like with those tires, which I think it's so interesting because it is essentially treated the same way as like the engine manufacturers, which I don't think of tires in the same way. I don't give them the same importance in my mind because they're all Pirelli.
Yeah. Well, okay, so from 2001 to 2004, everything was going good. Bridgestone and Michelin were like the 2 providers. And then in 2005, Formula One made a rule change, and for that year, they decided that tire changers were not allowed. So you had to run the full race on 1 set of tires.
What the fuck?
What? Isn't that wild? So hard compounds were obviously the tires that they would use because they are the only ones that you can like try and do 300 kilometers on.
Why would you do that?
They were we're probably on like the like super hard tires.
Yeah, the super the hard compound. Yeah. But I think Bridgestone and Michelin both created a new tire for that. because, like, there's no way you can do 300 kilometers on those tires.
Yeah, if it was this year's hards, that would not have happened.
And in 2006, the rule was reinstated because of the problems that were caused at the US GP. So, okay, what happened was there were 20 cars, 3 teams, 6 cars were using the Bridgestone tires, and it was Ferrari, Jordan, and Minardi. And then the remaining 14 cars were using Michelin. The qualifying was held on the 18th of June. Normal, everything was fine. By the way, Raikkonen was here already. Schumacher was obviously here, and Alonso was racing in 2005.
Oh my God, my favorite
16
rookie.
years ago. I just really had to laugh at that. He went through all of this. Anyway, so qualifying was like happening, and there was this one. Oh, also, this is like not the Texan GP. This is in Indianapolis. Turn 13 was this like, it's like a really bad turn, and you had to like basically really high speed banked. So it just caused like a lot of tire loading, and is just generally not good on the tires. And then imagine having to do that for like 73 laps without changing tires. So during quali, Ralf Schumacher, which is Schumacher's brother, who I didn't know was also a driver, for Toyota, crashed really badly because of tire failure in turn 13. So Michelin was like, oh, well, oops. This is our fault. All other 14 cars have to like watch out because the tires just can't deal with that turn for 73 laps. So then FIA was like they couldn't guarantee the tires' safety for more than 10 laps. Like after the 10th lap, they were like, you either need to change tires or like,
What?
Yeah. So FIA was
But
like,
they can't change tires.
they can't change tires.
And that's 10 laps of like a 70-something lap race.
So FIA was like, okay, here's your choice. You can limit the speeds through 13, but all the teams were like, yeah, we don't want to do that because that can cause pileup. Like, that would be bad for also the other teams. So they ruled that out immediately. Then they were like using tires of a different specification to those used in qualifying, and they were like, but then they would get a penalty. So the teams were also like, no. Or they were like changing. Then FIA was like, okay, well then you can change tires every 10 laps if it means like the driver's safety. So the teams were like, what? We have to change tires every 10 laps. Like, that's 7 times during a whole...
Do they even have enough tires for that?
No!
Especially if you're told you can only bring one set of tires. Those are your tires. You can't have any more.
So Michelin tire the teams that were using the Michelin tires wanted FIA to like install a chicane in turn 13, but FIA was like, absolutely not. Like, we're not having it.
Wait, so this was just Michelin? Like, was Bridgestone just totally fine? Their tires were good?
Bridgestone were trying to... Yeah, Bridgestone was fine. Yeah, it was really weird.
All the Michelin teams were like, damn, should have picked Bridgestone for this season.
Yeah. And then several days later, or during the race, right, what ended up happening is all of the cars did the opening lap, and then because the pit entrance was right before the start, the 14 cars that were on the Michelin just did the opening lap for like a parade and then went into the pit stop, and only 6 cars did the race. Yeah, really bad. And then a few days later, the teams that were using Michelin, so that was Red Bull, Williams, Renault, McLaren, Toyota, Honda, and Sauber, they were charged by the FIA that they had failed to ensure availability of suitable tires for the race, wrongfully refused to allow cars to start the race, wrongfully refused to allow cars to race, subject to speed restrictions at the corner, and combined with other teams to make a demonstration damaging to the image of Formula One by pulling into the pits immediately before the start of the race. So, and then eventually FIA dropped all charges because, like, that's kind of dumb. Like, they were trying to keep their drivers safe.
Like, there was not a way that they could have had a good race with the options that the FIA gave them.
Yeah. Also, like, shouldn't the FIA be happy that, there were no hurt drive? They picked the safest option.
So eventually the FIA was like, okay, well, we're dropping charges because, like, there was literally no real other option. Especially since the FIA had, like, said no to the chicane and, like,
Yeah, why would they say no to a chicane? Like, what? I
don't know. I feel like they didn't really go into details, and I think that just had to do with, like, whoever was managing the FIA at the time.
I think the best option would have been to just everybody uses the Bridgestone tires if they had enough, but
I know. So 2006 was the last year Michelin was in F1, and since then it was like 2007 to 2011 it was Bridgestone, and then onwards it's only been Pirelli. But after the race, David Coulthard, who was a presenter at the time, was like, it throws into doubt the future of races in the US, and 2008 was the last race in Indianapolis, and then now obviously we know that the race is in Texas and not Indianapolis anymore.
I feel like that's not, like, Indianapolis's, like, or the US's fault. Like, to me that sounds completely on the FIA.
Crazy, though, that you had to try and do 73 laps on one tire.
I also, can you imagine what the race would have been like if all of the other teams decided to pit every 10 laps and Bridgestone was just fine and they didn't have to pit at all? Like,
well, so one thing that did happen also, and that I forgot to mention, is that it kind of screwed up everyone's, like, position. Everyone that was using Michelin tires that race, like, they obviously didn't get any points, and I forget who it was, but, like, the points were all skewed because of that race. Yeah.
Wow. I think they could have just like canceled it, like taken it out.
That was another thing that they were asking to do, but FIA also was like, no, and the Bridgestone cars were like, no, we don't want that, which is fair.
Yeah. I know. I guess that is fair, because, like, if you're, I don't know, if it was any other part of the car that was, like, having trouble, then, like, that wouldn't be a reasonable excuse. But I think because it was so many of the teams, I don't think that, like, Michelin as the, like, tire manufacturer could have predicted that this was something that was going to happen.
Yeah. Also, I read somewhere that last year Michelin was trying to come back, but I don't think anyone can replace Pirelli at this point.
Yeah, I think it's been, what, 7? No. Oh my god, I thought it was 2018.
It's 10 years.
Yeah, they started in 2011, so this is, I guess, the 10th year that they've been the, like, sole tire manufacturer, which I think
especially with all the car upgrades and everything. Like, I feel like if a different tire tried to join, like, Pirelli has so much experience now with these modern cars.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up our sexy and sultry tire episode. I hope you all learned something. Got a hard on, got wet.
Oh, jeez.
Whatever compound tire you're feeling.
I'm feeling intermediate.
I'm feeling intermediate. Be sure to follow us on our socials. We are at BoxBoxBox Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and we are at BoxBoxBoxPod on Twitter. We post some dank, sexy, sultry memes on there too. Maybe it'll be about tires. Who knows?
Yes.
Yeah, as always, thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.